Let's start with 3 ohms. Jai Gurudev. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The subject today that is given to me is to speak about the beauty of Carnatic and Hindustani classical music. And the moment I think of Hindustani or Carnatic music, which is the two grand jewels of the music from India, I think of the temple music. The Hindustani or the Carnatic music, both were at the beginning originated in the temples, and it was a type of music that was developed to appreciate the divine, to all kind of art forms, not just the music, not just the classical art music form, but also the dance and painting and several other art forms. They were all at the beginning originated in the temples. They were the root cause why these kind of art forms took that shape and took that systematization or nomenclature as and the grammar as we know it now today. And the most important utilization of this Carnatic and Hindustani music were into the Bhakti movement, and that's what actually gave a new shape to this form of music. So that's what we're going to discuss today. So it's focused on the application and to understand a little bit of origins and the anatomy, a little bit of everything. Actually, it's difficult to cover everything, but the idea is to help you understand, at least get an introduction if you have not known already what Carnatic and Hindustani music is. And also we will look at a little bit of practical examples at the end. So the beginning of the presentation is just going to be more about the history, and let's go with it first. So first we look at the origins of Carnatic music. As you know, it would be traced mostly in the south of India, and the three main trinity or the gurus of Carnatic music are Tyagaraja Bhagavatar, Muthuswami Dikshitar and Shyama Shastrigal. So these three are the main gurus who systematized the Carnatic music form as we know it today. And also, like I said, the Bhakti movement in South India with the help of Ramanujacharya and also several other gurus and swamis. It was developed, however, it was previously traced in the Natya Shastra of Bharata Muni back in 500 BC, 200 BC. So, of course, it has much more past, but this one was, the Natya Shastra was the one where we can see back how far back this was recorded in a book. This is the photo of the three main trinity of Carnatic classical music. The one in the left is Shyama Shastri, the one in the middle is Tyagaraja Bhagavatar, and the one in the right is Muthuswami Dikshitar. You must have seen this photo in many places, especially if you go to South India. It's a very household photo. And a little bit about Hindustani classical music. The roots of this music go back to 1500 BC, as long as 1500 BC, when the first hymns of the Vedic chants were discovered. I say discovered because it wasn't invented at that time, it was already existing. And however, Amir Khusro was the first ones to systematize it back in the 12th century And of course, it has a huge Persian and Islamic influence, because for a very, very long time, the North India was quite well culturally mixed with several other parts of northern northern to India, the other side of Himalayas, Mongols and Persia, and also the Georgian Caucasus. So that's where these influence come from. So that Hindustani Hindustani classical music has this influence as well, quite a lot. And of course, like I said, that's why it's traced mostly in North India. That doesn't mean that you will not find it in South India, but most of the classical music form practiced in today in the North is Hindustani classical music. And again, Bhakti tradition also in the North gave a good shape to this form of classical music as well, where they found out that we need to develop more of these rags and tals, which we're going to talk about now. But that is basically to give you a brief overview of the origin of this, both the classical forms of music. So it's sometimes important to understand the anatomy, right, before we understand what exactly we are going to study. Also, it's notable that in the 18th century, Tansen is from the 16th century, but in the 18th century there was a huge revolution, we can say, in the Hindustani classical music, where the Gharana styles were introduced. So if you have been to North India and if you've heard or if you've tried to learn any kind of art, dance, music, art form from North India, they would always ask you, which Gharana are you from? So the Gharana basically means a prominent lineage or which has unique styles, repertoire and techniques. And one of the main Gharanas in classical music are the Gwalior Gharana, the Agra Gharana, and so on. So we have several other Gharanas as well. So this is just to give you an understanding. So it's important to also know which Gharana style. So if you're learning from any guru, so the first thing that they would say is, oh, we are from the specific Gharana. Gharana literally means the house or the lineage from where you are learning. And Tansen, of course, from the court of Akbar, had a huge role to play in Hindustani classical music as well. He's one of the best known Hindustani classical musician by far, and his disciples Swami Haridas Giri and also Baiju Bavra have done a significant job in developing this style of music. So now looking at the foundation, and now we are getting into the science a little bit of both the style of music. But before that, I want you to understand, relate, before we get into or we start looking at the notes or the swaras as we call it in Sanskrit. So before we look into it, we want to know what exactly I'm talking about. So that's why I have put the Western notes. So the Western notes, we have 12 different notes. So if you are in one octave of, let's say, in octave of C or octave of Do or an octave of Re or octave of D as we know it, then there are 12 notes in that octave, right? So let's say if you are in D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp. They were 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah? So in any octave, there are 12 notes. This is the temporized style of music from the time of Beethoven and Mozart. So they found that there are 12 intervals in one octave, from sa, from this lower octave to the higher octave, we have 12 intervals. And these 12 intervals is what we have in harmonium, in all the keys instrument, or even in guitar with the frets. So you will find 12 different notes. And these are the names of those 12 different notes. The first note regardless of whether it's a C or a D or a E or a F or a G or a B or a F sharp or a A sharp. The first note is called as the root note. And followed by that we have minor second, minor third, major fourth, major third, and then the perfect fourth, then the flat fourth, or which is also the flat fifth, sorry, which is also called as a sharp fourth or a tritone. Then we have the fifth, then minor sixth, minor seventh, major seventh. So this is the list of notes in the Western style. So this is just to give you an understanding of what we're going to look at in the next slide, which is for the Carnatic music. Here we have, of course, a little bit more complicated. So we have 16 notes in Carnatic style. As you can see here, there are 3 different kind of rays. So before I say about rays, let me tell you, in both Hindustani and Carnatic, we have Shadjam, which is the root note, which is the Sa, Rishabham, which is the second note, which is 2, Gandharam or the Ga, Madhyamam, which is the Ma, Panchamam, which is the Pa, Dhaivatam, which is the Dha, and Nishadam, which is the Ni. Okay, so we have these 7 basic notes in Hindustani and Carnatic, both the classical music form. Shadjam, Rishabham, Gandharam, Madhyamam, Panchamam, Daivatam, Nishadam. Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni. In Carnatic style, we have 3 different kind of Rishabhams, 3 different kind of Gandharams, 2 different kind of Madhyamams, 3 different kind of Daivatams, and 3 different kind of Nishadams. So there is 1 second note extra, 1 third note extra, 1 sixth note extra, and 1 seventh note extra. So if you compare this table with the one that I showed you in the previous one, you will notice that the second, as we call it in the Western, it's Rishabham. The first is called as the Shadjam or the Sa. The third, where you see the letter, the number third, it's the Ga in Hindustani. Where you see the fourth, it's the Ma in Hindustani. The fifth is the Pa. The sixth is the Dha. The seventh is the Ni. Okay? So the Sa and the Pa are unique, or the first and the fifth are unique. There is no minor first, major first. There is no minor fifth, major fifth. The first is just the first. The fifth is just the fifth. So the Sa and Pa are unique. There is no different kind of Sas and Pas. The Sa is, there's just one Sa. There is only one Pa. Equally, in the Carnatic style as well, we have only one Shadjam and only one Pancham. But the Rishabhams are 3 different kind of Rishabhams. As you can see, Shuddha Rishabham, Shatshruti Rishabham, Chatushruti Rishabham. Well, then I'm telling you. So it's Shuddha Rishabham. So first there is a Shadjam, then there is 3 different kind of Rishabhams. Shuddha Rishabham, Chatshruti Rishabham, and Chatushruti Rishabham. Then there is 3 different kind of Gas as well. Shuddha Gandharam, Chatshruti Gandharam, Chatushruti Gandharam. Okay? 2 different kind of Mas, Shuddha Ma and Prati Madhyama. Shuddha Madhyama and Prati Madhyama. 1 Pa, Pancham. There is only one Pancham. It's the 8th number, Panchama. Then there is again 3 Daivatams, Shuddha Daivatam, Chatshruti Daivatam, Chatushruti Daivatam, and 3 Nishadams, Shuddha Nishadam, Chatshruti Nishadam, and Chatushruti Nishadam. So in total, how many notes do we have in Carnatic? 16. 4 more than the Western style. Okay? And that's why they use normally the veena or violin or this kind of fretless instruments in Carnatic music. Harmonium is used very little in Carnatic music. We see now the Hindustani style. Here we have 12, just the same as the Western style. also starts with Shadjam, or the first note or the root note. The fifth is the Pancham. And there are 2 Rishabham, 2 Gandharam, 2 Madhyamam, 2 Daivatam and 2 Nishadam. So 1 Sa, 1 Pa, 2 Rishabham, 2 Gandharam, 2 Madhyamam, 2 Daivatam and 2 Nishadam. So total 12 notes in Hindustani style. So what is important to note here is the similarities that we have and the differences as well, because in Carnatic, if you talk about Carnatic style, there is a little bit of difference. There is 1 second note extra, 1 third note extra, 1 sixth note extra and 1 seventh note extra in Carnatic. However, in Hindustani, there is exactly the same number of notes. And they are basically the Komal Rishabham. Komal means soft, lighter. And Shuddha Rishabham. Shuddha means pure, normal. And then Komal Gandharam, Shuddha Gandharam, Shuddha Madhyamam, which is the normal Madhyamam, and then Tivra Madhyamam, which is the sharper or the stronger Madhyamam. Then Panchamam, then Komal Daivatam, Shuddha Daivatam, Komal Nishadam, Shuddha Nishadam. So those are the 12 notes. And just to give you an idea and understanding, if we had considered Shadjam as C, then C sharp would be the Komal Rishabham, D would be the Shuddha Rishabham, D sharp would be the Komal Gandharam, E would be the Shuddha Gandharam, Shuddha Madhyamam will be the F, Tivra Madhyamam will be F sharp, Pa is G, and so on. If it's a different octave you are in, then accordingly it will change. So this swaras is the most important thing that you need to know before you start understanding the language of Indian classical music. Depending on whether you are learning a Carnatic classical music or a Hindustani classical music, you would have to learn these swaras in order to understand where you are singing, which swaras you are singing, to identify yourself in which rag you are, so that you can navigate in that rag to be able to sing the song that you want to sing with the perfect pitch. I'll take questions at the end in case if you have any, you can note it down. So both in Carnatic and Hindustani, there are typical set of rags which are the root rags. In case of Carnatic, there are 72 Mela Karta, as they call it. The root rags are 72, exactly 72. And there is a very big science and mathematics behind it actually, because you will notice that there can be exactly 72 combinations where there is at least one re, one ga, one ma, one dha, one ni out of the 2 or 3 different re, ga, ma, dha, nis can be used, and there can be exactly these 72 combinations, out of which 36 are Shuddha Madhyama ragas and 36 are Prati Madhyama ragas. So out of these 72 ragas, there are roughly around, broadly we can say, 700 Janya ragas or the children ragas, which are derived from the main parent 72 ragas in Carnatic. In Hindustani, we have 10 different types of dhats or the root scales. So out of these 10 different types of root scales, we have roughly about 200. That's not the exact number, but roughly around 200 ragas are today in existence. However, it can be more, and we are seeing more and more new people are discovering new ragas. So there is just immense capacity and possibilities when it comes to developing new styles of ragas. Once you do a PhD in Hindustani or Carnatic music, you can develop your own raga as well. But roughly these are the numbers as you can see here. So one of the main people to give us these 10 different dhats, which was previously 32 dhats in Hindustani, was Vishnu Narayan Bhakt Kande. He was the one to visit all the different gharanas and see which ones are the most common ones out of all of them. And then he developed this 10 different dhats from where we have all the different ragas. And in case of Carnatic, it was Vidwan Venkatamakhin back in the 16th, 17th century who developed the Melakarta structure. And it's intriguing because this is the structure that Vidwan Venkatamakhin has developed back in 1640. Like I said, there can be exactly 72 combinations when you use one of the rays, one of the gas, one of the mas, one of the das, one of the knees. And 36 of them, one hemisphere of it is Shuddha Madhyama ragas. And Shuddha Madhyama means one, Madhyama one, the first Madhyama ragas. And then the other hemisphere is the Prati Madhyama ragas, which is the second Madhyama ragas. And within each of the Madhyama hemispheres, you can see there is the Indu Chakra, and there is a Netra Chakra, Agni Chakra, Veda Chakra, and so on. And each chakra has a specific importance and significance, and those imbibe some sort of a feeling inside of you. So that back in ages, Carnatic music was used a lot for healing and to calm down your temper and to and for many esoteric styles of treatments back in the ages. And so was Hindustani. Hindustani classical music also has a very strict timings of which ragas can be played at what time because of their structure. And these are the 10 different dhats as I was speaking about. The Bilawal dhat, the Kamaj, Kafi, Asaveri, Bhairav, Kalyan, Purvi, Bhairavi, Todi, and Marva. So whenever you go to learn Hindustani classical music, and also in the case of Carnatic classical music, one of these 10 rags will be taught to you first. Mostly it is Bhairav or Kalyan, but Yaman is from the Kalyan dhat. The Kalyan dhat or the Kalyan family is where the Yaman rag is. So if you've ever tried to learn Hindustani music before, you would have heard, or the first rag or the second rag that you would have learned is probably Yaman. So that is from the Kalyan dhat. So all of this that I'm telling you is probably not used in a practical day-to-day daily way, and that's probably also the reason why I thought I will share these knowledge and information with you, because sometimes we just undermine it because this is not really required to be able to play or sing. But I think a little bit of history and a little bit of understanding of the science and mathematics behind it is also a little bit important. If you did not understand all of that, it's still okay. You can still go ahead. That doesn't disqualify you from understanding or learning further about these styles of music from India. Actually, I have also noted down some of the similarities that we have with the Western modes, as we call it. So the Ionian mode is the Bilawal dhat. The Mixolydian mode is the Kamaj dhat. The Dorian is Kafi, or in Carnatic you can call it Karakhara Priya. The Aeolian is Asaveri or Charumati in Carnatic. Lydian is Kalyan or Yaman. It's also called as Kalyani Ragam in Carnatic. The Phrygian is Bhairavi, or in Carnatic it's called Sindhu Bhairavi. The Lokrainian is Sohni in Hindustani, or Hamsa Nandi in Carnatic. So these are the similarities. So if you ever knew about these modes, you would know what I'm talking about. So Ionian, Mixolydian, Dorian, these are the 7 modes in Western music. And I think it's, especially if you know a little bit of Western music, it helps you understand and relate much closer to the Indian classical music styles. Actually, before we get into the rhythm part, the tala part, first we look at melody. So music is basically, according to me, in my opinion, music is divided into two parts. 50% is melody, 50% is rhythm. Now inside of melody, of course, you can then go on and say that there is also a lot to do with the lyrics that you say or sing when you're playing music. But initially the music can be divided into two parts. So half of it is the rhythm or the percussion, and half of it is the melodic instruments, including the vocals. So before we get into the rhythm part, let's try to understand a little bit about the melody, and maybe we'll learn also a few rags, at least a couple of them, if not more. So right now we are in the C scale in Western. In Carnatic we call it Urkatai, or the first note, because generally the C is the first note in many cases. So we also call it the first note in Carnatic. In Hindustani it's called the Safed Ek, or the first white. It literally translates to the first note as well. So we are in the first shruti, or first tone, which is the C. Yeah. So in C, we are going to look at the Bilawal Dhat, the first rag, the Bilawal Dhat, which is the C major scale as we all know it. So you will probably know already. Does anyone know the C major scale, how it would sound? Can anyone say it? Very good. Who was that? It was you. Very good. First, very good. Very nice. So it's Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. Very good. Now let's look at the Bhairavi scale. The Bhairavi scale is very close to the minor scale. Can you sing the minor scale as well? Very good. That's minor scale. So that's Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa. But we will do a little bit of change in it, and we'll sing the Bhairavi scale, where only the Re is flat. So it's, instead of Sa Re, it's Sa Re. Okay, so let's sing the Bhairavi scale together. Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. I'm sure you will have a lot of ideas, and I'm sure you will have a lot of examples when it comes to the major scale, because in major scale you have all the songs that we've been learning since childhood, all the rhymes, like so all of these songs that we've been learning, that all of these songs that we've been learning since childhood, they all mostly are in major scales, all these happy style songs. Some examples for Bhairavi scale. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda Bol, Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol, Mukunda Madhava Govinda Bol. Kali Maheshwari Parvati Shankari, Sharanam 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 Ma. This is the Bhairavi scale. Ga ma pa ni sa re sa ni dha sa sa ga re re ga ma re ni sa sa re sa ni dha pa ma ga ga re ga ma re ni sa. That's just to give you an idea of Bhairavi. Can anybody repeat the Bhairavi scale that you just heard? A little bit louder. Anybody can repeat? You can repeat? Very close, very near. Can you, maybe with the help of harmonium, you'll all be able to do it, no? Maybe with the help of harmonium. Everybody can sing. I cannot hear. Okay, let's try the Kalyan Dhat, the Yaman Rag. It's very close to the major scale. Once again, major scale, how is it? How does it sound? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Yeah? Only one change between the major scale and the Yaman Rag. It's the Madhyama. It's no more the Shuddha Madhyama. It's the Tivra Madhyama. It's the second Ma, or the tritone, as you can call it, or the flat fifth, or the sharp fourth. So it's Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. It's not Sa Re Ga Ma, it's Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. Ni Re Ga Ma Dha Ni Sa Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. Ni Re Ga Ni Re Ma Ma Da Ni Da Pa Ga Ma Dha Ma Da Ni Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Da Pa Ma Ga Re Ga. Ni Re Ga Ma Pa Ma Ga Re Sa Ni Sa. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Radha Radha. You see that beauty? That's Yaman. Very few rags have that beauty. So in general, when you start learning Hindustani classical music, Bhairavi and Yaman are the first scales that are taught to you. And people generally take a couple of years just learning the scale, just learning, understanding the different sa re ga ma pa ga ma pa and this different exercises. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa re ga ma pa da ni sa re ga re sa ni da pa ma ga re sa re ga ma pa da ni sa re ga ma ga re sa ni. And every time you have to be very careful on singing the right note. You may be saying whatever sa re ga ma pa da ni sa re ga ma, but you should be singing the right tone. Sa re ga ma. You cannot be singing sa re ga ma. Then you are no more in Yaman. So that being in the right tone is very important. So now that you know a little bit about how maybe a couple of ragas sound, and by the way, what we learnt as Bhairavi is Sindhu Bhairavi in Carnatic, and what we learnt as Yaman is Kalyani in Carnatic. So basically, although we just learnt with the name of Hindustani, we also learnt something in Carnatic. It's just the names are different. In many cases, the rag stays the same, but the name changes. Sometimes the rag changes, but the names are the same. So there are quite a lot of similarities and also differences, of course. And it's mostly with the techniques and how the singing styles, the gamakas especially, the sa, this meaned is not found much in Carnatic. So it's more like oscillating style in Carnatic, where sa ga, this is more Carnatic. That's just to give you a simple example. And now we get into the talas, or the different time signatures that we have. In the Carnatic style, so the time signatures or the one cycle is called as avartanam, and each beat is called as the matre or the matras. So it depends on which time signature you are in. There are different matras in one cycle. So if you are in a time signature of 3 beats, then there are 3 matras or 3 beats in one cycle or one compass. If you are in a 4 beat cycle, then there are 4 matras in one cycle or one avartanam, 4 matras in one avartanam, and so on. 5 beats as 5 beats in one cycle, and so on. So there are typical ways how these different styles of music, Carnatic and Hindustani, have pronunciation for each of these time signatures. So in case of Carnatic style, the 3 beat or the Tishra Jati is takitta 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 takitta. Okay, so this is the way how the 3 beats is it sounds in Carnatic music, at least how it's spelled out. I mean, it sounds differently in different instruments of Carnatic, but at least if you want to say it, how is the 3 beat, then you can say takitta takitta takitta. Maybe you can all repeat takitta 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 takitta. Now double takitta 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 takitta. Okay, now the 4 beat or Chatushra Jati is Takka Dhimmi. Well, we can advance and go into the 8 beat, which is Takka Dhimmi Takka Junnu. 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 This is how the 4 or the 8 beats can be spoken by verbally. And then there is the 5 beat or the Gandham Jati. It's tak Taka takita, taka takita, taka takita, taka takita. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4. Taka takita, taka takita, taka takita, taka takita ta. Okay? And then the 7 beats are basically the mix of 3 and 4. Takita taka dhimi, takita taka dhimi, takita taka dhimi, takita taka dhimi, takita taka dhimi ta. And 9 beats is basically the mix of 4 and 5. Taka dhimi, taka takita, taka dhimi, taka takita, taka dhimi, taka takita, taka dhimi, taka takita ta. The moment you understand these different syllables of how to pronounce it or how to verbally say the different time signatures, you can be very well organized in time signatures and even recognize any time signature in no time, and be able to even, it will help you to even play better your kartals, and it will also help you to play better if you are learning any percussion instrument. Since the topic of today was not just about playing a melodic instrument, I thought it would also help to understand a little bit about the use of talas or the rhythmic cycles in Indian classical. Now going into the Hindustani style of talas, it is very, very important to understand the word, the meaning of the word sam. So sam is when the cycle gets over and it reaches once again the 1. You will hear a lot from the Hindustani musicians that, oh, it didn't fall in the sum. Unless it doesn't fall in the sum, it's not right, or there has been some mistake. You missed the train, or you didn't catch the track. So in Hindustani style, you have to really understand the sum, and the sum is basically the 1. If you have heard before, taka takita, taka takita, taka takita, taka takita ta. This is the last one, the ta, is basically the sum. So now there are different ways of how we can understand the different time signatures within Hindustani style, but I thought it's best to add this sound that we already have with the help of technology. So the teen tal or the 16 beat, which is the most common 4x4 time signature we have in Hindustani, it sounds like this. Dha din din da dha din din dha da tin tin ta ta din din da 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 dha din din ta ta din din dha da, and then the sum is over here. Dha din din da dha din din da dha din din ta ta din din dha dha din din da dha din din da dha din din ta ta din din da da. So that was when the whole cycle gets over, the 16 beats get over, and when it reaches the 1, is the dha is the sum. If not all of them, I would at least like you to understand the teen tal and maybe repeat along with me, and if nothing else, at least you can go back when in the subject of talas, at least you can go back with the understanding of teen tal. So teen tal is divided into 4 beats of 4 bars. So as one cycle is 16 beats, one avartana is 16 beats, and it's the first 4 are dha dhin dhin dha. You can repeat after me. Dha dhin dhin dha. The second is also the same. Dha dhin dhin dha. The third is dha tin tin ta. Yeah, you see the difference. And then the last one is ta din din dha. So you can sing along with the machine. Dha din din dha, dha din din dha, dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da da din din da da tin tin ta ta din din dha dha. So the one important thing here is to count as well. You can't just be singing because there is a support of the digital technology. What if there is nothing in front of you? So it's called as teen tal because there is 3 thalis or the claps and 1 kali, which is the silence. So there are 3 times dha din din dha dha din din dha dha tin tin ta ta din din dha dha din din dha dha din din dha dha tin. Oh, sorry. The third one is a kali, and then the fourth one is a thali. So remember 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And some. Once again with the tabla. Dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da din din da dha din din da dha tin tin ta ta din din da dha. Okay, now mixing both what we learned, the rag and the tal together, would be the real basically work that you will be doing once you start learning either of the styles of music. Now I am not specifically telling one or the other, so that's why I am doing a more common version of both. So using the same rhythm, the same teen tal rhythm or the 4x4 or the adi tal in Carnatic as we call it, we're going to play, let's say, the Bhairavi rag first. Da din din da da din din da da din din da da din din sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Now the double. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga. The double of that. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni dha pa ma ga re. You can do different variations in that. Sa re re ga ga ma ma pa pa da da ni ni sa re re sa ni ni da da pa pa ma ma ga ga re re. Sa re re ga ga ma ma pa pa da da ni ni sa re re sa ni ni da da pa pa ma ma ga ga re re. Sa re re ga ga ma ma pa pa da da ni ni sa re re sa ni ni da da pa pa ma ma ga ga re re. You can also do more variations. Sa re ga ma pa da ma pa da ni da ni sa re ga ma da re sa ni da pa ma ga re sa re ga ma pa da ma pa da ni da ni sa re ga ma ga re sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. So this is what basically you apply into your learning from day one, from your first class when you learn Hindustani or Carnatic music. So it's not that on your first class you'll only focus on ragas, you'll only focus on saregama or one raga and try to learn the notes and the tones of each raga, or you'll only learn the tala. It's not like that. You will have to understand the beats as well, in which beat you are, and then slowly start learning the different rags and beats that there are. So this is just to give you a brief introduction, and also some instruments that are widely popular in the different styles of classical music in India. In Carnatic we have Veena, most famous instrument that you can see mostly with I'm sure you must know, with Saraswati. So since the times of Saraswati, we know we have this instrument Veena. Then violin, which is also a Western instrument, of course. It's adapted now more for Carnatic styles of playing. Mridangam. I remember a couple of years back to 2021, I think there was one professor of Mridangam giving a workshop here. He lives in Germany. So basically that is the instrument. It resembles a little bit of Pakawaj, but Pakawaj was adapted from this Mridangam style. It has a very unique sound and it has some strings attached as well to it. And then the pot, the earthen pot that you see over there is called as the Ghatam. Then we have the Bansuri or the flute that is played by Krishna. And we have the Kanjira. It's more like Pandareta, and it's called in Spanish, but I don't know how you call it in English. But so all of these instruments, even the percussion instruments, they are tuned to a specific tone. For example, you're hearing sa. So when you ask a percussionist to sing or play with you, they will always ask you, which scale are you going to sing? Because it's important to tune the instrument to that scale. And the tuning of the instruments can change with the weather, with the conditions around, and the heat, cold, dampness, and so on.
But Bansuri cannot tune, right? So
Bansuri cannot tune. You have to transpose it. So you will have to have different Bansuris if you want to play in different scales. And in the Hindustani, we have sitar, which is fairly new instrument, I would say. It's not as old as many other instruments. Sarod, we have tabla. It was actually Pakawaj before, and then they formed this idea of playing with two hands as a drum. And then there is harmonium, which is very, very new instrument. It's one of the newest of all. Not more than 200, 300 years old when it was first invented in France. And then via Germany it came to England. But back then it was an instrument that was played with two hands, and for the bellows you would use your legs. But when it came to India, there was two problems. First, you cannot, you have to sit down because everybody sits down, and you cannot sit in a chair and play. And the second problem was you cannot touch any instrument with your feet. You cannot touch anything with your feet because it's considered disrespectful. So there is so whenever something touches with your feet, you immediately do, oh, Krishna, sorry. It's a reflex reaction. So that is the reason why it took this form of harmonium in India. And then there is Bansuri and Santur. These are the most common instruments. And lastly, some different forms of compositions in Carnatic and Hindustani music are called as Kriti or Kirtanai in Carnatic, and Bandish, the compositions are called in Hindustani. And they are basically divided into these three formats. So whenever a rendition of a Carnatic or a Hindustani concert is done, they are first divided into Alap or the Ragam, then Jor or Tanam, and then the Jala, which is the Pallavi. There is one, this is the final slide, of course, and it's to help you understand the importance of Manodharma, or the intuition, or the importance of creativity. At the end of the day, you are being taught with these different ragas, which has different tones, within the different talas, which has different time signatures. Now it is upon you how you create different songs out of the different lyrics and different mantras and different poems that you may have, or you can adapt it from some other Swami or Guru's writings and create your own song. And this is common in both Hindustani and Carnatic styles. So this bhava has to be something brought up, and that is not a thing that you can get it in 1 hour or 1 year. It will take a lot of patience and many years of practice. From different gurus, maybe you can go to Carnatic guru for some time, a Hindustani guru for some time, understand how music is being learnt in this style, how music is being learnt in that style, and then eventually be able to build your own manodharma, to able to create your own style of music. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for your patience, and I hope it was useful for you, this 1 hour. And for any questions or if you want the presentation, I can also send it to you. You just have to give me your email address and I will forward it to you, or I can forward it to Mataji and she can send it to you all. Thank you so much. We can end the class with 3 Oms and a Shanti. Om.